Welcome to the Be Here Now Guest Podcast. This series features a collection of teachings and conversations centered around mindfulness, spiritual growth, and living a life in balance. Each week, our diverse network of guest teachers and hosts offer up wisdom and practices from a different spiritual path and perspective. If you would like to support this podcast, please visit BeHereNowNetwork.com/donate.
This talk is about coming to our senses, the title of this retreat, as an antidote to the hindrances, the things that get in the way of our peace and joy. And there are 5 classical hindrances. And many of you, if you've been to a Vipassana retreat, you have heard a hindrance talk. But you can always hear it again because it's really important to familiarize yourself with these hindrances so that you know them when they come up in your experience and you can be mindful of them, aware of them instead of completely caught in the grip of them. So that's the purpose of, of going over it. And because it's really one of our jobs in the meditation practice is to get very familiar with these. And we usually want to rush to get rid of them because they're unpleasant. They're like 5 thieves that rob us of our peace and joy. They're like 5 strategies of disconnection from experience. And, but instead of rushing past them, trying to get rid of them, what we learn is that actually they are part of the path. They are, I don't know if they're a necessary part of the path. They are ubiquitous, everywhere, part of the path. So you'll be able to recognize them. So these are the mind's uninvited guests. They appear without our wanting them to. Classic names are, I'm going to break that down a little bit, aversion, sloth, and torpor. Our friend Wes used to give the funniest, he's a comedian, a stand-up comedian. I mean, literally, he is. And he used to give the funniest hindrance talk where he would talk about sloth and torpor as a law firm. My favorite law firm that I would be most involved in is restlessness, worry, and doubt. Each have our favorites of the hindrances. But again, these are not mistakes. They're not your fault. They're part of the practice. And when the mind gets lost in them, the doorway back to being present is through coming to our senses, what we see, hear, taste, touch, feel in this particular moment of our life. And we know this is actually the only real moment of our life. So the first one is sense desire. I think of it as sort of the inner Netflix queue. Like there's the cooking show, there's the rom-coms, there's Heartbreak Hotel, there's, all kinds of tragedies. But basically they sometimes call it sensual desire, which I guess it is, but I don't like that name because it makes it sound like having sensuousness is bad or desire for that is bad, which it is not. And make the distinction between tanha, which as Gula mentioned, tanha is that thirst or craving, that kind of desire. Like, I will not be happy. I need this in order to be happy. That kind of feeling. I can't feel good until I have fill in the blank, whatever this is. It's a very reactive, grasping energy. And you could even think of it as wanting a certain outcome in meditation so that you can feel worthy, or that you aren't wasting your time here, or, things like that. And it's contrasted with chanda, which is another kind of desire, but it's a desire for something good and wholesome and healthy, like an aspiration to practice the Dharma, When I was a single working mom, I just craved going on retreat sometimes. It was so much easier than being at home. But that craving was actually, it was a longing for the Dharma, so that would be considered chanda. That would be considered healthy. And where you can, if you're ever wondering which is which, you can ask yourself, which one will lead to suffering? And which one will lead to more happiness or peace of mind? We don't always know. We make mistakes, but that's because we're human. So tanha grasps, and chanda guides us, actually, guides our life, and is aligned with this practice. So when we're in the grip of craving, and there's no 12-step meeting immediately available, what do? We come back to our senses, can feel the breath in the belly. Take a deep breath, feel it in your whole body. Because craving pulls us out of the moment into some imagined pleasure, something that's going to be more and better and different than right now. And so the cue to take a deep breath, to sense and feel the breath in the body, in the belly, in the chest, wherever you feel it, in the nose, it just grounds us in that felt sense of being here, of being alive. And this is really where mindfulness comes in. And, you think mindfulness, yeah, I know what that is. But mindfulness is a revolution in consciousness. It's huge. It's profound. It's being present in the moment, non-judgmentally. Yes, it's that. But it's also shifting attention from the object of our attention to the subject, the awareness of whatever it is that we're aware of in any given moment. And I learned something that was very helpful to me in my practice from Lienshi's teacher, Sayadaw U Tejaniya, a Burmese meditation master. Oh, we don't use that word master anymore. A very experienced meditation teacher, Sayadaw in Myanmar, although sort of resists the government by calling it Burma, where he taught that another way of approaching noting pleasant or unpleasant or neutral about an experience, which is very skillful, because if I take that bite of chocolate and I make a note, pleasant, it just creates that little space between the skull and the brain that might allow me not to take, 15 more bites. I might get to choose, 2 or 3, whatever it is. But rather than just noting pleasant or unpleasant or neither, neutral, Sayadaw taught, look at what happens in your mind when something's pleasant. There's liking in the mind. When something's unpleasant, there's disliking in the mind. When there's something very neutral, it's usually ignoring or spacing out. And that shift from the object of our attention to the attention itself, that is a revolution in consciousness, because we are not usually looking inside. We're looking usually outside of ourselves. And I call it this because it's huge, and I want you to appreciate yourself and your effort when you are, stepping back, taking that backward step. I mean, I talked about it in the meditation instruction yesterday as meditation guidance, as just shifting your body back slightly so that you're receiving the moment instead of anticipating the next one, wanting something else from this moment. And that practice actually comes from a 13th century Zen teacher named Dogen Zenji. And he taught when the self goes forward toward the myriad things, this is delusion. When the myriad things come toward the self and are received by the self, this is awakening. What he meant is when we go toward an experience with our wanting, our agendas, it's a diluted approach. But when we can just step back and appreciate whatever it is, then that's awakening. So for desire, just being aware of the things that beckon to you in that particularly enticing way, whether it's the yummy monkey bread or the soft bed, cozy bed in your cabin, and then just turn around, like make that revolution of consciousness and look at how does it feel to be wanting this? What part of me is wanting this? What is this? Is this congruent with my values and what I'm doing here? Is this leading to wisdom or learning? Is this something that's actually going to make me happy, or am I going to regret it later? Or am I going to feel guilty for skipping the sit? Whatever it is here in the retreat. So the first hindrance is, I guess I would call it, the craving, the desire that is unskillful because it doesn't make us happy. And the second one is ill will. And this is basically first the things we want and then the things we don't want. Sometimes I call ill will the inner prosecutor. And it's paired with tanha, because the first one wants something and the second one does not want something. There's our first teacher, and I think this is in the texts, Gulu, our captain, will know. There are 4 kinds of suffering. There's the suffering of wanting what you don't have. There's the suffering of having what you don't want. And these are the first 2 hindrances. Having a hindrance when you want to be clear and peaceful. There's the suffering of being separated from the people we love, our loved ones. And then there's the suffering of being close to people we don't love. And we've all experienced both of those. So ill will is often called aversion. And, that's a good translation because it means a strong dislike for something. But aversion to suffering is a little different because it can be a kindness to turn away from something that causes us pain. And often in mindfulness practice, we say, maybe I'm having a pain I don't want or some other feeling I don't want. I have aversion to it, almost like a judgment, like it's bad to have aversion. But I think reframe that a little bit and say it's actually compassion too. It's like when we see the suffering we feel when we see somebody suffering, we want to help them. We wish for the end of suffering for ourselves and all beings. And that's not just aversion to suffering. It's actually compassion. So I think what I'm saying is that aversion is also here to protect us from things that are painful in this life. The problem is aversion doesn't understand what true protection is. And true protection comes from understanding that we can meet our suffering, that we have strong enough mindfulness and strong enough ability to be present, that we can hold it, that we can meet it, that it's not going to flood us and overwhelm us and drown us and destroy us, which is often the fear. And it also, the other true protection is understanding the way through the suffering. The way out of the suffering is through the suffering. That's what I meant. That we need, and often you'll hear the instruction from one of us, can you just feel it? Can you allow yourself to feel it fully? Even though it's the last thing. Well, you don't want to turn toward it. But by turning toward it and feeling it fully, it changes. It softens. It changes in some way. And our getting curious about that, that's our mindfulness practice. And that's a true protection. When you feel ill will, it could be toward, somebody here in the retreat that annoys you. There's usually somebody that annoys you. They cough or they smell or whatever it might be. There's somebody who annoys you usually. So when you feel that, just instead of focusing on, the unpleasant and the disliking, come back to the disliking in your mind and ask yourself, what does this feel like energetically? What are the sensations that are associated with my not liking, fill in the blank, whatever it is? Does it make me physically uncomfortable? Because sometimes it's pain, which is, it's like the dentist saying, this may be cause a little discomfort. And then it's like, yeah. We say the same thing. We talk about euphemistically strong sensations or discomfort in the practice. But really, it's painful sometimes. It hurts. But the point is to allow the body to be a container that makes space for the experience. And this just takes practice. It's completely doable, but it takes practice. And that's why you're here. But sometimes aversion is also to cover something that's deeper. And this is important. The Pali word for it is, for this hindrance, is nivarana. And that literally means something that covers over. So it's easier sometimes to recoil from something than to explore it or get curious about it because, maybe it's something that we're embarrassed about or ashamed of, or having aversion to it is a way of maybe hiding from it, trying to protect ourselves. It might be, as long as we ruminate about some discomfort, we don't have to actually feel it. That's the fake kind of protection. We don't have to feel how actually uncomfortable or sad we are, or mad, or whatever the difficult emotion might be. And then I guess I think why I'm talking about this is because it's hard to believe that aversion can benefit you. It's hard to believe that it can be actually an ally in your practice. But it is because it's uncomfortable, we notice it. Whereas pleasant things can slip by and they're pleasant, so we're not necessarily mindful of them. Actually, Utejaniya asked me that question once. He said, what is it hardest to be aware of? And I think I said the neutral experiences. He said, no, it's the pleasant ones because they're so pleasant. We're just enjoying them. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying them, but we need to be aware that we're doing that. That's all. So aversion is our friend because it triggers discomfort. And so we notice it. And then hopefully we get some, because we're in a meditation retreat, at least here, some curiosity. What is this? Where is it coming from in me? What are the sensations that are associated with it? And so forth, coming back to the body. Because this is not a failing. It's an inevitable part of life. And normalizing these experiences is really important. Because when we're sitting alone in silence, that's why the groups are so important here. We're sitting alone in silence, you can start to feel that everything is your fault. Everything that isn't peaceful and perfect. When we meet in a group and you get a chance to listen to other people and you realize, oh, okay, this isn't just me. So, we can be in noble silence, and in our minds, we're yelling at our roommate. That's aversion. And that's the kind of thing, to just recognize the heat and how, is it a tight jaw? Is it a hot chest? Is it like, there's like hot hells and cold hells, the icy, and just being interested in exploring and investigating it. Without that willingness, it's hard to strengthen your mindfulness. It's hard for mindfulness to do its work of freeing your heart. But you all have that willingness, or you wouldn't be here. You would never come here if you were not willing to do this, because it's too hard. And I bow to you for that. I don't know all of you, but I love you all for that willingness, for being here, and the willingness to work with all of this and to look at yourself the way you do. And I mentioned in the group this morning, I said to Jack once, I just love people in retreat because I feel so much reverence for their willingness to meet themselves and work with themselves and learn the Dharma. Don't you? And he said, not really. He said, I respect them and I'm glad they're practicing, but I don't feel that. I have this like surge of love for you. Anyway, let's come back to ill will. Yeah. So, feeling the sensations, then comes hopefully some physical softening. At least you're opening some emotional space for kindness to come in. And that willingness to shift the attention away from whatever we're hostile toward and turn our attention instead to curiosity and exploration. And what can we learn about this? The third hindrance is that law firm, sloth and torpor. Think of it as your mind in PJs. Like you're just tired. It's that heavy, foggy, thick, muddy, molasses mind, the sinking mind. And especially after lunch, you might notice this. It's like you can, and the mind has no pride. It will stoop to any kind of rationalization. You can tell yourself, I'm going to lie down in the hall because, it's like shavasana and yoga and, anyway, I don't have to, you've made up your own, you know what they are. But like all these states, when sloth and torpor show up, and they inevitably do, they always will at some point, it's important to find ways to practice with it and not just struggle with it. I don't know if it was yesterday, one of these sits, I was tired when I got here, like many of you, and one of these sits, I was just sitting here very quietly, and when the bell rang, I realized I was like this. Sloth and torpor won that time. I didn't struggle. Maybe I should have, but anyway, it's really essential not to abandon a meditation center because a meditation session, or a center, but it's really important not to abandon a meditation session because of sloth and torpor. Because that's the other, like your mind will say, oh, really, this isn't worth it. What could you be getting out of this? You're falling asleep. Just go back and rest. Just go take a nap. Well, you can. If you're really, 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 have maybe you didn't sleep at all or something, but our energy levels naturally rise and fall during the day, and especially in meditation. And sooner or later, this hindrance will change and go away. If you can hang in there and stay with it, it will change. And if it's mild, you can overcome it by just like taking a deep breath, bringing in more energy. But there are different options for working with sleepiness. And one of them is a brisk walking outside instead of a slow walk. Just walk really fast. When I practiced Rinzai Zen with my husband, who was really practicing in that tradition, one of my former husbands, when I practiced in that tradition, the way that you did walking meditation was boom, 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 like fast. And you were walking in a line and you had to follow in the footsteps of the person in front of you. And you were walking so fast and outside and over roots and branches. And so the mindfulness practice was just to stay in step and not fall. Anyway, that can wake you up. And, making sure you're sitting up straight. You can open your eyes. You can stand up if you you can stand up because chances are you're not going to fall asleep standing up. In the old days, there are a lot of stories about, determined practitioners who are sleepy and struggling with this hindrance, and they go sit at the edge of a cliff. So if they fall, they'll die. Right? Washing your face with cold water can help. In the text, they say pulling on your earlobes, but that has never done a thing for me. I don't know. You can try it. Making sure you're not too warm. And actually reflecting on death and dying. And that might sound morbid, but in Buddhist psychology and Buddhist philosophy and practice, it's a big deal because it wakes us up, I told the story. I was teaching on Mother's Day at Inside LA, and I told this story about the weekend before. We'd had a lot of family visit, and we were about to have another one. And I was just tired. And so I sort of marched up to Jack in the morning and said, in this very, very grouchy, defiant tone, "I am not going to the farmer's market this morning." He was like, "Okay." He said, "We only have a short while." And I was like, oh my God, he's right. We're only here a short while. Why would I talk to him this way? He could be dead tomorrow. And I would have been super grouchy. And so I sort of apologized. And he said, well, actually, I was just thinking we're only here for a few more days. But reflecting on death and dying, it wakes you up. It does. How do I want to be? What if I am going? We don't know how much time we have. I swim at a pool, and my pool, and I used to swim anyway. It doesn't matter which pool I swam at in Cambridge. What matters is that Doris, who used to swim with us, one day walked out of the pool and dropped dead. I mean, we don't know. These things can happen. She wasn't old. She must have had a heart attack or something. Anyway, I found this part of a poem, and I don't know who it's from, but it's about sloth and torpor. Oh, sweeter far than strain and stress is the slow creeping weariness, and better far than thought I find the drowsy blankness of the mind. So mindfulness practice, here again, can help us understand what might lead to lethargy. And you can notice sometimes the role that resistance to experience plays in the sinking mind, the sinking of energy, rather. Sinking mind is a little different. The sinking of energy, because shutting down energetically is a good strategy for avoiding something that's happening, or avoiding something that might happen, or avoiding having to experience it. I was sharing in the group this morning that I used to be able to go to therapy. I was in my late 20s at this point. I was able to go to therapy. I was sitting up on a couch, and something difficult would arise, but I wasn't aware of it. I literally could fall asleep sitting up with my therapist. It was an avoidance strategy. You can fall asleep sitting up here in the hall when you've had a good night's sleep. So falling asleep in meditation can be it's a form of resistance that is outside of our awareness. So the point is, see if you can, discover what it might be and bring it into your awareness. Then, and this is my personal favorite, and not in terms of my liking it, but in terms of my finding myself in the midst of it often, is restlessness and worry. Restlessness is really two parts. One of it is one part is the physical restlessness, that feeling of just being a jumping bean, like you can't sit still, you're going to jump out of your skin, or you're going to explode if you have to sit there one more second. Like there's that physical restlessness. But then there's also mental restlessness, which takes the form of worry, anxiety, travels in your mind, being someplace else. The next retreat, I'm going to do this and that. Or what if I'd gone to that meditation center instead? It probably would have been better. Or these teachers, I don't know. I think those other ones, I should have signed up for that retreat. Those are all forms of restlessness. The inner squirrel, you can think of it. Busy mind, fidgeting body. You're meditating and suddenly you've written 3 emails, a chapter of your book, and you've reorganized the garage. And, that's restlessness, all of that. And maybe you've remembered graduation from middle school and the party afterwards. No, it could be anything. And it always is. There's something. But what makes it interesting isn't just knowing this is restlessness, being familiar with it. That's important. But what is this? What's underneath this? What is making me leave this moment and go somewhere else? Is it energy that's just built up in, that's the other thing. Sitting and doing Qigong, we fill with more energy. And that energy can sometimes feel pent up and come out in restlessness. Is it tension? Is it fear? Who would I be if I'm not busy? Who would I be if, and the mind too. It's like, wait a minute. If you're not thinking, I'm unemployed. I'm out of a job. Who am I? So I think looking at what's interesting is looking at the energies behind the restlessness. Is it guilt? Is it regret? Is it trauma? What is it? And what is it that just keeps me wired so I can't sit still? In my case, I have ADHD. It's hard. But it's also, when you have that, some of you who do, you have a superpower too, which is you can hyper-focus. And then you can just get involved in something for hours and everything else falls away. And that's a good thing for meditation, not for everyday life. So just looking, am I over full with energy? What is my mental restlessness about? Why do I feel incomplete in this moment? Why is this moment not okay? Am I lonely? Am I running somewhere? Am I just living in my head because it's more interesting than the breath? Fantasies are more interesting than breathing. Until you really sense and feel that being loved by the breath. As I talked about, the breath can be so really, really pleasant. And I think in our culture too, we've kind of lost the talent or ability to rest and be silent. It's sort of, we think there's something wrong. Are you okay? If somebody's, deeply at rest. So you want to feel it in your body. And you want to get curious about, what's cooking under there? What is it? Sad, worried, lonely, what is it? And the skillful means are just to ground yourself in touch, maybe a hand on the heart, maybe drop in a metta phrase of caring, of self-compassion, the warmth of the breath, the sounds around you, the sensations in the body, the sounds of life around you, the movement of the breath. These are all things that they only happen in the present moment. I don't hear yesterday's sounds or tomorrow's. I don't breathe yesterday's breaths or tomorrow's. So they're really helpful in grounding and being here. And like all of these hindrances, when we're willing to just let it be and explore it and be curious about it, it loses its power over us. It loses its power to take away our peace of mind and joy in life. And then the last one is doubt. Sort of like the inner cynic. Doubt is, again, there's two kinds of doubt. There's the hindering kind of doubt, which is, is this practice for me? Maybe I can't do it. Maybe I'm the one that after 2,500 years of this practice helping so many people, it's going to hit a wall with me. That's the hindering doubt. Doubting yourself, doubting your teachers, doubting the center, doubting Buddhism. Maybe I should be a Hindu, really. That's all the hindering doubt. What is this? Adult nap camp? What am I in? I mean, doubt can be very funny, but yeah, it's still doubt. And it's characterized by a lack of confidence in what you're doing and in yourself, a lack of trust in experience, that experience you're having is enough. It causes a lot of hesitation, procrastination, vacillation, all these things that prevent us from settling into our meditation practice. It can manifest as confusion about the meditation instructions. And could you repeat that again? And that kind of feeling. And again, it can also be stirred up by deeper fears and insecurities and things like that. But it leads to agitation, just constant sort of ruminating thinking, which is also a hallmark of anxiety and restlessness, feelings of inadequacy, or just feeling so deflated that you don't have energy for practice. Doubt is actually the slipperiest one of all the hindrances. It can really derail your practice because it masquerades as something reasonable. Like, I think I would do better with Zen practice than Vipassana, because it's like the rationalization for sloth and torpor. Doubt, it's just slippery, and to be able to see it for what it is, I think it's the trickiest one to recognize. And then there's what my first teacher, the Korean Zen master, Daesan Sunim, Venerable Sung-san, what he called great doubt. And that's the doubt of inquiry or questioning or investigation. The doubt that doesn't take things for granted. The doubt that is curiosity and wants to understand and isn't satisfied or complacent with just feeling good, but wants to really understand what this life is and who I am and my path in it. And that kind of doubt can move you from the state of paralysis caused by the hindering doubt. It can move you from that into getting engaged and curious with your practice again. So just keep an eye out or an ear out for the tone of doubt, which is usually sort of dry and detached and skeptical about yourself or the practice or the place or the teachers. And then the antidote, coming to our senses, come back to what you do know. The breath rising and falling, the body sitting. This is real. This is now. This is what you do know. And the senses bring us back to the ground of our being. And there's no room for doubt. I'm here. You're here. As my first teacher used to say, the wall is white, the floor is brown. This is great faith. This is the opposite of doubt. I had a story to read too, but That's the first rule of public speaking. Don't ever say what you don't have time for. It just agitates people. I think I'll tell it anyway. So what if you're 3 minutes late to dinner, right? I'll just go over this really fast, which is be mindful, revolution of consciousness, turn it around, look inside, look at the mind state itself and not that thing out there. And never make a decision when you're in the grip of a hindrance. That I didn't say that, but that's important. And wisdom comes from familiarity with these. You get wise about them. It's lots of repetition. You'll visit them often. And instead of feeling discouraged about, oh my God, another hindrance attack, it's another chance to become wiser. And so they are. And this is the power and blessing of mindfulness, that you can turn around and look it in the face and see. So I want to tell you this story because I read it in a book about, some of you may have read this book. I forget what it was called, but it was about the soccer team that crashed in the Andes and how they survived. It was a little bit grisly and terrible, but some of them survived. And then this one man named Nando Pardo, he tells this story. He said, when my fellow survivors and I first returned from the mountains, our parents and teachers worried that we had been scarred by the horrors that we had faced, and they asked us to go see a therapist. As a group, I said no. We had one another's support, and for me, that's always been enough. They were a team. He said, but even now people are curious about the psychological effects of such an ordeal. And I'm often asked, how did I deal with the trauma? Do I suffer nightmares? Do I have flashbacks? Have I struggled with survivor guilt? And these people are always surprised. And sometimes I even suspect they're dubious when I tell them that I have experienced none of these things. I have lived a happy life since the disaster. I have no guilt or resentments. I look forward to tomorrow, and I always expect the future to be good. That's a good one for us in these challenging times, because no matter what happens to the earth, even if we're not here, it'll be beautiful, and there will be good days. But how is that possible, they ask? How can you be at peace with life after what you suffered? And I tell them I'm not at peace in spite of what I suffered. I'm at peace because of what I suffered. The Andes took so much from me. They took so much away from me. But they also gave me the simple insight that has liberated me, and illuminated my life. Death is real, and death is very near. In the mountains, there was never a minute that I did not feel death at my side. But the moment I stood on the summit of the mountain and saw nothing but towering peaks as far as they could see was the moment all my doubts were swept away and the certainty of my own death. They were trying to walk out, and he thought that it was not going to be that far. And then he saw nothing but mountains and knew he would die. The realness of death stole my breath away, but at the same time, I burned more brightly with life than I ever had before. And in the face of total hopelessness, I felt a burst of joy. The realness of death was so clear and so potent that for a moment it burned away everything temporary and false. He didn't have any hindrances. It burned them away. Death had shown its face, predatory, invincible, and for a split second it seemed that beneath the fragile illusions of life, death was all there was. But then I saw there was something in the world that was not death, something just as awesome and enduring and profound. There was love, the love in my heart. And for one incredible moment, as I felt this love swell, love for my father, for my future, for my life, for the simple wonder of being alive, death lost its power. In that moment, I stopped running from death. Instead, I made every step a step toward love, and that saved my life. I have never stopped moving toward love. Life has blessed me. As we used to say in the mountains, breathe, breathe again. With every breath, you're alive. And after all these years, this is still the best advice I can give you. Savor your existence. Live every moment. Do not waste a breath. Thank you, everybody. Savor your dinner. Do not waste a moment worrying about anything. And enjoy your practice.